My name is Myra Ingram. I'm 32 years old, and 3 weeks ago, my own mother hired 3 lawyers to force me to sign away the inheritance my father left me, right in the middle of her living room. She called it a family meeting. I call it an ambush. They thought I would come alone. They thought I would tremble at legal jargon and Latin phrases. They thought the daughter they had dismissed for 20 years would bow her head and sign her name on the dotted line. They were wrong. Before I tell you what happened next, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story, and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. To understand why I was standing in that room, I need to take you back 25 years, to the day my parents divorced. I was 7 years old when my world split in two. My father, Thomas Ingram, was a carpenter. He built things with his hands: furniture, cabinets, dreams. What he couldn't build was a defense against my mother's lawyers. He didn't have money for the good ones. So when the divorce was finalized, he lost almost everything. Mom got the house, Mom got custody, Dad got 2 weekends a month and a heart full of regret. I still remember the last time he dropped me off at Mom's place after one of those weekends. He knelt down on the porch, his calloused hands gentle on my shoulders. "Remember this, sweetheart," he said. "No matter what anyone tells you, I'm always here. I'll always love you." I didn't understand why his eyes were wet. I was 7. I thought dads just cried sometimes. A year later, Mom remarried. Richard Porter walked into our lives with his pressed suits and his daughter Melissa from his first marriage. Suddenly, our family had a new structure, one where I didn't quite fit. Richard never hit me, he never yelled. He did something quieter, something that left no bruises but carved deep grooves into my sense of self. He simply acted as if I wasn't there. At dinner parties, Mom would introduce the family. "This is my husband Richard, and this is Melissa, our daughter." Then, almost as an afterthought, "Oh, and this is Myra. She's from my previous marriage." Every time she said it, I felt myself shrink a little smaller. I learned to become invisible in that house. Invisible was safe. Invisible meant fewer questions, fewer comparisons, fewer moments where I came up short against Melissa's piano recitals and honor roll certificates. But invisible also meant forgotten. The favoritism wasn't subtle. It was a system, carefully maintained. When I was 16, I asked Mom for money to buy textbooks for the new semester. She looked at me like I'd asked for a diamond necklace. "Ask your father," she said. "He's supposed to provide for you." That same week, Melissa got a brand new car for her 18th birthday. A silver Honda Civic with a bow on the hood. The whole family gathered to watch her squeal with delight. I started working after school, washing dishes at a diner on 5th Street, mowing lawns for the neighbors. Every dollar I earned felt like a small rebellion. Richard noticed. Of course he did. "She's just like her father," he told Mom one night, not bothering to lower his voice. "Going to spend her whole life doing other people's dirty work." I pretended I didn't hear. But I heard. I always heard. The worst part came at my high school graduation. I had ranked top of my class in mathematics. A small victory, but mine. I expected nothing from my family, and they delivered exactly that. Mom forgot to invite the relatives. No aunts, no uncles, no cousins lined the auditorium seats. But someone was there. In the back row, wearing his old brown jacket that was slightly too big for his thinning frame, sat my father, Thomas Ingram. He clapped louder than anyone when my name was called. I could hear him over the entire crowd. After the ceremony, he found me outside. His eyes were shining again, like they had been all those years ago on the porch. He pressed an envelope into my hand. "I've been saving," he whispered, "for your college. Don't tell your mother." I kept that secret for 14 years, until Dad died, and the secret became a storm. The call came on a Tuesday, 7:04 a.m. I was pouring my first coffee of the day when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. I wish I could say I'm glad I did, but the truth is more complicated than that. "Ms. Myra Ingram?" The voice was older, measured, professional. "Speaking." My name is Harold Whitmore. I'm an estate attorney. I was your father's lawyer and his friend. A pause. I'm very sorry to inform you that Thomas Ingram passed away 3 days ago. It was his heart. He went peacefully, in his sleep. The coffee cup slipped from my fingers. I watched it fall in slow motion, dark liquid splashing across the white kitchen tiles. I couldn't move to catch it. 3 days. My father had been dead for 3 days. Ms. Ingram, are you still there? Who else knows? My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. Your mother was notified, along with her husband. Of course they were. And not one of them had called me. Not a text, not a message. My own father was dead, and I found out from a stranger. Mr. Whitmore, I steadied myself against the counter. Why are you calling me? Your father left a will, Ms. Ingram, a very specific one. He named you as the sole beneficiary. I'd like to meet with you to discuss the details. Sole beneficiary. The words didn't make sense. Dad was a carpenter. He lived in a modest house, drove a 15-year-old truck. There must be some mistake. No mistake. Harold's voice softened slightly. Thomas was very deliberate about this. He made me promise to find you first, before anyone else. And Miss Ingram, he asked me to tell you not to contact anyone in your family about our meeting. He was very specific about that. My heart was pounding. Why? Because he knew they would try to take it from you. Harold Whitmore's office smelled like old books and furniture polish. The kind of smell that made you trust what happened inside these walls. He was older than I expected, silver-haired, wire-rimmed glasses, the weathered face of a man who had seen too many families tear themselves apart over money. He gestured for me to sit. A thick folder lay on the desk between us. Your father came to me 23 years ago, Harold began. Right after the divorce, he wanted to make sure that if anything ever happened to him, you would be protected. He opened the folder. Inside was a document I recognized. A last will and testament, along with photographs, bank statements, property records. The house on Maple Street. Market value approximately $550,000. A savings account containing $180,000, some personal effects. Harold looked up at me. Total estate value is just under $800,000. I couldn't breathe. That's impossible. Dad was a carpenter. He was a carpenter who sold his workshop 15 years ago and invested wisely. Small rental properties, mostly. He lived simply so he could leave you this. Harold's voice was gentle. He never touched the principal. He wanted you to have it all. My eyes blurred. All those years, living in that one-bedroom house, driving that old truck, wearing the same brown jacket to my graduation. He could have lived better. He chose not to. Harold slid another item across the desk. A sealed envelope, my name written in Dad's familiar handwriting. He asked me to give you this when the time came. But Myra, Harold hesitated. He also asked me to tell you not to open it until you need it. He said you'll know when. I took the envelope. It weighed almost nothing. But somehow, it felt heavier than everything else in the room. There's one more thing, Harold said. Your mother. She's already asking questions. The silence lasted exactly 1 week. Then the phone calls started. Aunt Linda was first. Mom's younger sister, the one who always wore too much perfume and spoke in whispers at family gatherings. Myra, honey. Her voice dripped with practiced concern. I heard about your father's passing. Such a shame. And I heard there was some money involved. I said nothing. Sweetheart, your mother is very upset. She feels like you're shutting the family out. Don't you think you should share what Thomas left? After all, she was married to him too. I hung up. Uncle Robert called next. Then Cousin Denise. Then people I hadn't spoken to in years, all suddenly remembering my number, all with the same script. Your mother is heartbroken. Families should stick together. Thomas would have wanted you to share. Would he? I thought about the envelope in my drawer, still sealed. I thought about Harold's words. He knew they would try to take it from you. Finally, Mom herself called. It was a Thursday evening, and her voice was sweet. Too sweet. The kind of sweet that used to precede punishment when I was a child. Myra, darling, I've been trying to reach you. I heard about the will. Who told you? She ignored the question. We need to talk about this as a family. Your father and I were married for 9 years. Whatever he had, I helped him build. Surely you understand that? The will says otherwise. Silence. Then cooler. We should meet. Discuss this properly. I'll arrange a family meeting this weekend. My house. Saturday at 2. Fine. And Myra? Her voice hardened just slightly. Don't be difficult about this. We're your family. Everything can be resolved if you just cooperate. I didn't sleep that night. Something was coming. I could feel it. Before the family meeting, I agreed to meet Mom for coffee. Just the two of us, she said, to talk things through. She didn't come alone. Richard was already seated when I arrived at the cafe, his arms crossed over his chest like a bouncer at a club. Mom sat beside him, her face arranged in an expression of wounded motherhood. Myra, sweetheart. She gestured to the empty chair. Sit down. Richard wanted to join us. You don't mind, do you? I did mind, but I sat anyway. Richard didn't waste time. He leaned forward, his cologne sharp in my nostrils. Let's cut the crap, Myra. Your dad's gone. He left you some money. That's nice. But your mother sacrificed years raising you. She deserves her share. Her share of what? The estate. We're thinking 70-30. You keep 30%. Sign the papers, everyone's happy. I looked at Mom. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Dad left everything to me, I said quietly. That was his choice. His choice? Richard laughed. The man's dead. His choices don't matter anymore. Something cold settled in my chest. They matter to me. 70-30, Myra. Richard's voice dropped. That's the deal. No. No? He seemed genuinely surprised, like the idea of refusal hadn't crossed his mind. No. I stood up. The will is legal, it's final, and this conversation is over. I walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard Richard's chair scrape against the floor. You're going to regret this. His voice carried across the cafe. Other customers turned to look. Trust me, you have no idea what you're dealing with. I didn't turn around, but I memorized those words. Later, I would be grateful I did. After the cafe, the campaign began in earnest. They didn't come at me directly. That wasn't their style. Instead, they mobilized the family network, turning relatives into soldiers in a war I never wanted. My phone became a weapon aimed at my sanity. Text messages piled up like accusations. From Aunt Linda, "Your mother cried all night? Is this who you've become?" From Uncle Robert, "Thomas would be ashamed of you. You know that, right?" From cousins I hadn't seen in a decade. Selfish, ungrateful, cold. Then came the Facebook post. Someone, I never confirmed who, wrote a long, emotional message in the family group chat. It painted a picture of a greedy daughter who had abandoned her mother, stolen her father's estate through manipulation, and now refused to share a single cent with the family that raised her. The comments poured in. Relatives I barely remembered called me names I can't repeat here. Old family friends clicked angry reactions. Someone shared a photo of me from years ago with the caption, "This is what betrayal looks like." I screenshotted everything, every message, every post, every accusation. I didn't know why I was doing it at the time. Some instinct, maybe. Harold's voice in my head. He knew they would try to take it from you. Melissa texted me for the first time in months. "You're tearing this family apart, Myra. Mom won't stop crying. Why are you doing this to us?" I typed a response, then deleted it. Then typed another. "I'm not doing anything. I'm just refusing to give away what Dad gave me." She didn't reply. 2 weeks of silence followed. No calls, no texts, nothing. The silence was worse than the attacks, because silence meant they were planning. The call came on a Wednesday. Mom's voice was different this time. Flat, businesslike, stripped of all the fake sweetness. Myra, we need to meet. A family meeting. This Saturday, 2 o'clock. My house. What's there to discuss? The future. A pause. How we can all move forward. Richard thinks, we all think, there's a way to resolve this without lawyers, without courts, like a family. Something about the word lawyers made my stomach tighten. The way she said it, too casual, too rehearsed. Fine, I'll be there. Good. Was that satisfaction in her voice? And Myra? Come with an open mind. We just want what's best for everyone. I hung up and immediately called Harold. A family meeting, I told him. Saturday. She mentioned lawyers, but said we could resolve it without them. Harold was quiet for a moment. Then, if she mentioned lawyers at all, she has them. Count on it. What should I do? You should go. And you should have me nearby. If things go south, text me, I'll come in. I hesitated. What exactly are you expecting? I'm expecting them to pressure you. Intimidation. Maybe threats disguised as concern. They might have documents ready for you to sign, things that look reasonable but aren't. Harold's voice was steady. Don't sign anything, Myra. Don't agree to anything. And whatever happens, don't lose your temper. That's what they want. I thought about Richard's words at the cafe. You're going to regret this. Harold, do you think Dad saw this coming? Your father spent 20 years preparing for this exact scenario. Another pause. He loved you very much, Myra, and he knew your mother better than anyone. That night, I finally looked at the sealed envelope in my drawer. Not yet, but soon. The night before the family meeting, I opened the envelope. Dad's handwriting filled the page, slightly shaky, as if written by an older hand, but unmistakably his. The same hand that had signed my birthday cards, my graduation check, every small note he'd ever sent. My dearest Myra, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And if Harold gave this to you now, it means your mother has started. I always knew she would. Some things never change. There's something I never told you. During the divorce, your mother threatened to take you away completely. No visits, no contact. She had a lawyer friend who said he could make it happen. I was terrified. You were only 7. So I signed away everything. The house, the savings, all of it. Just to keep my weekends with you. Just to keep some piece of my daughter in my life. I was wrong to give in. I should have fought harder. That regret has followed me every day since. But I won't let you make the same mistake. I won't let you bow to people who don't deserve your respect. Everything is prepared. Harold has the documentation, the will, the medical evaluations, every legal protection I could think of. He also has recordings. Things your mother said, things she thought no one would ever hear. Trust Harold. Trust yourself. And remember what I told you on that porch when you were 7. I'm always here. I'll always love you. Ways. Don't let them take what's yours, sweetheart. Not the money. That's just paper. Don't let them take your dignity. Your right to stand tall. That's my real gift to you. Love always, Dad. I sat in the dark for a long time after that, the letter pressed against my chest, tears streaming down my face. He had known. He had prepared. Even from beyond the grave, Dad was still protecting me. Friday morning, Harold's office, the last strategy session before the battle. He spread documents across the conference table like a general planning a campaign. The will, notarized and witnessed. Medical certifications confirming Dad's mental competence. Property records, bank statements. Everything organized, everything bulletproof. They'll try to claim Thomas wasn't of sound mind, Harold said. That's their only angle. They might have a family member willing to testify that he was confused, forgetful, easily manipulated. Aunt Linda, I said immediately. She'd lie for Mom. Then we have this. Harold held up a folder. Psychiatric evaluation from Dr. Patricia Morrison, conducted 8 weeks before your father's death. Full cognitive assessment. Thomas passed with flying colors. Any judge in California will accept this. He set down another item, a USB drive. 47 text messages, 23 recorded phone calls, 15 social media posts, all documenting a coordinated harassment campaign against you. Harold's eyes met mine. If they try to play the victim, we have proof of who the real aggressors are. I stared at the small device. Dad told you to collect this? Your father told me to prepare for war. Harold's voice softened. He hoped it wouldn't come to this, but he knew your mother. He knew her husband. He wanted you armed. What if they have lawyers tomorrow? Then I come in. Harold handed me his card. Keep your phone accessible. If you see legal representation, text me one word. Now. I'll be parked 2 blocks away. I took a deep breath. Anything else? Yes. Harold leaned forward. Whatever they say, whatever they accuse you of, don't react. Don't raise your voice, don't cry, don't give them ammunition. He paused. Your father always said you were stronger than you knew. Tomorrow you prove him right. I nodded. Ready or not, the war was coming. Saturday, 1:55 p.m. I pulled up to Mom's house with my heart hammering against my ribs. Harold's car was parked 2 blocks away, as promised. A small comfort, a lifeline. The house looked the same as it always had. White siding, manicured lawn, the American dream wrapped in a picket fence. I had spent years trying to belong inside those walls. Now they felt like enemy territory. I walked up the porch steps. Before I could knock, the door swung open. Mom stood there, her smile too wide, too practiced. Myra, you came. She leaned in for a hug I didn't return. Come in, come in. Everyone's waiting. Everyone. The living room was fuller than I expected. Mom and Richard occupied the main sofa. Aunt Linda perched on an armchair, avoiding my eyes. Uncle Robert stood by the window, arms crossed. Melissa sat in the corner, scrolling through her phone. And then there were the 3 people I didn't recognize. 2 men in expensive suits, 1 woman with a leather briefcase, all seated at the dining table, which had been cleared except for stacks of paper and a digital recorder. Mom followed my gaze. Her smile didn't waver. Myra, this is Mr. Stevens and Mr. Martinez, their attorneys, and this is their legal assistant. She gestured toward an empty chair. Sit down, sweetheart. We have a lot to discuss. I remained standing. You said this was a family meeting. It is, Richard's voice cut in, smug and satisfied. We're just making sure everything is properly documented. I looked at the papers on the table. The recording device. The lawyers who wouldn't meet my eyes. This wasn't a meeting. This was an ambush. And they thought I had walked into it alone. Mr. Stevens spoke first. Silver-haired, calm, the kind of lawyer who charged $500 an hour and looked like every dollar. Ms. Ingram, thank you for joining us today. He opened a folder with deliberate slowness. We represent your mother, Mrs. Diane Porter, in matters concerning the estate of Thomas Ingram. I said nothing, just waited. It's come to our attention that the will leaving you as sole beneficiary may be contestable. Stevens glanced at his notes. We have reason to believe Thomas Ingram was not of sound mind when he executed the document. We have witnesses prepared to testify to his declining mental state in his final years. Aunt Linda shifted in her chair, still not looking at me. Martinez leaned forward. Now, we could take this to probate court. These cases can drag on for years, Ms. Ingram. Legal fees alone could consume half the estate. Nobody wins in that scenario. But, Stevens continued smoothly, there's a simpler solution, a family settlement. You sign a voluntary relinquishment, transferring 80% of the estate to your mother. You retain 20%. Clean, simple. Everyone moves on with their lives. 80%. Not 70, like Richard had demanded at the cafe. They'd gotten greedier. You're asking me to give away $600,000. We're asking you to be reasonable. Stevens pushed a thick stack of papers toward me. The documents are right here. Review them if you like, but I think you'll find everything is in order. I looked down at the top page, bold letters, Voluntary relinquishment of inheritance rights. Mom was watching me with bright, expectant eyes. Richard's smile could have cut glass. So, Stevens clicked his pen. Do we have a deal? I picked up the documents, flipped through them slowly. Then I smiled. You know what's funny? My smile seemed to confuse them. Richard recovered first. What's funny is you thinking you have a choice. He stood up, his face reddening. You're a nobody, Myra. A nobody with a nothing degree working a nothing job. And now you've got a little money, and suddenly you think you're better than us? Richard, Mom started. No, Diane. She needs to hear this. He jabbed a finger in my direction. You're just like your father. Stubborn. Stupid. He spent his whole life doing other people's dirty work, and he died alone in that crappy little house. That's your future, sweetheart. That's what you're protecting. Aunt Linda nodded eagerly. He's right, Myra. You've always been difficult, even as a child. Selfish, Uncle Robert added from the window. Always taking, never giving. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. The tears looked real. I'd seen her practice them enough times to know they weren't. I raised you, she said, her voice trembling. I sacrificed everything for you. I gave you a home when your father abandoned you. He didn't abandon me. And this is how you repay me? By hoarding money that rightfully belongs to this family? Stevens cleared his throat. Ms. Ingram, I'd encourage you to consider your position carefully. Contesting this will would be expensive, time-consuming, and ultimately futile. Especially with the testimony we've gathered about your father's mental decline. He slid a pen across the table. Sign the papers. End this gracefully. I looked around the room. At my mother's fake tears, at Richard's barely contained rage, at the relatives who had made my childhood a masterclass in invisibility. They had prepared everything: lawyers, witnesses, pressure, everything except for one thing. I reached for my phone. Actually, I said calmly, I think I'd like a second opinion. I typed one word and hit send. Now. Richard laughed. What are you doing? Texting your friends? Nobody's coming to save you, Myra. I wouldn't be so sure. 2 minutes passed in tense silence. Stevens and Martinez exchanged glances. Mom's smile began to falter. Then the doorbell rang. Everyone froze. Mom looked at Richard, who looked at the lawyers, who looked at each other. I'll get it, I said, standing. Sit down, Richard started, but I was already at the door. Harold Whitmore stood on the porch, impeccably dressed in a charcoal gray suit, leather briefcase in hand. Behind his wire-rimmed glasses, his eyes were steady and sharp. Good afternoon, he said, loud enough for the room to hear. I hope I'm not interrupting. He walked past me into the living room. The effect was immediate. Stevens straightened in his chair. Martinez's confident smile vanished. Mom's face drained of color. Ladies and gentlemen. Harold set his briefcase on the coffee table. My name is Harold Whitmore. I'm a licensed estate attorney in the state of California, and I've been representing the interests of Thomas Ingram for the past 25 years. He paused. I am now representing his daughter, Myra Ingram. Richard found his voice first. This is a private family matter, which now includes legal representation on both sides. Harold clicked open his briefcase. I understand you have some concerns about the validity of Thomas Ingram's will. I'm delighted to address them. He pulled out a thick folder, then a USB drive, then a sealed envelope. Mom stared at the items like they were snakes coiled on her coffee table. Now then. Harold settled into an empty chair, perfectly at ease. Where shall we begin? The ambush had just been ambushed. I need to pause here for a moment, because I want to ask you something. If you were me, sitting in that room, surrounded by family who saw you as nothing more than an obstacle between them and money, what would you have done? Would you have signed to keep the peace? Or would you have stood your ground? Let me know in the comments. And if you're invested in what Harold said next, hit that subscribe button. Because what happened after this changed everything. Harold opened the folder with the precision of a surgeon. Let's start with your claim that Thomas Ingram was not of sound mind when he executed his will. He slid a document across the table toward Stevens. This is a psychiatric evaluation conducted by Dr. Patricia Morrison, a board-certified psychiatrist, 8 weeks before Mr. Ingram's death. Comprehensive cognitive assessment, memory, reasoning, decision-making capacity. Stevens glanced at the paper,